Hi, good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good morning, Commission. Les Trobman, General Counsel. We do have two individuals who have signed up to provide public comment this morning. First, we have Pat Smith. Could unmute yourself and introduce your name and affiliation for the record. Oh, you still need to unmute yourself. There should be a microphone in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
She is unmuted. She may not have a second.
Pat, while you continue to work on that, we could go to our second commenter and come on back if the technical difficulties can get resolved. Our second commenter is Christina Inclin.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
If you could introduce yourself and your affiliation for the record, and then go ahead.
My name is Christina Inclon. I am a grandmother raising 3 children. I am also a physical therapist providing home health services to Bexar County and the surrounding communities.
And do you have comments this morning to provide to the commission?
You guys are breaking up, or I'm breaking up. The reason I requested an opportunity to address the committee today is I have had been grateful to be able to receive some CCS funding for essential workers for the last 3 months. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I am told that those funds haven't been exhausted, and that my end date is in August the 11th. I realize funds are tight, and am appealing to the committee or to see if y'all are going to be able to bring any additional funds for the CCS program for essential workers. I do not qualify for regular CCS. So this has been a godsend in light of the pandemic, as our schedules and traveling and meeting the needs of patients, which are more so homebound now because of the pandemic. Once, with the schools not opening as of August 11th, we cease to have daycare, and as you well know, it's extremely expensive, which will cost me about $2,400 a month, which is not possible. So I just reaching out to express the appreciation first and the need for continued support for the CCS program, especially for essential workers, but of course for everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys. I appreciate it. Have a good day and be safe.
Thank you, you too.
One more time, Pat Smith.
She has logged off.
Okay. Commission, with that, those are the 2 comments we had registered for this morning.
Great, thank you so much. Let's move to agenda item 3. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
Let's see, on agenda item 3, we have no cases to reconsider. Is that correct?
That is correct. No cases.
All right, let's then move to agenda item 4, tax liability cases. I believe we have 1 tax case on docket 30.
Yes, sir. It's case number TD-19-078-0719. Commissioner Demerson,
I agree with staff recommendations.
Commissioner Alvarez,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5.
Correct, no cases.
We'll move to agenda item 6. We have no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion on docket 30.
That's correct, sir. No, none pulled, but you should have received the short form dissent list already.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 30.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 30.
And I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 30.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Let's move to agenda item 7 and consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 30.
Case number 2456230, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. In March, the claimant requested accommodations for a disability. The employer agreed that the claimant should be moved to a cashier position to accommodate her disability, but the employer never moved the claimant to a cashier position. The employer admitted in testimony that the claimant's hours were reduced due to her medical issues and business needs. By the end of her employment, the claimant was only working 8 hours a week, and she lost her housing because she was not earning enough. Wage records reflect that the claimant's earnings dropped over 30%. The substantial drop in hours provided the claimant good cause for quitting. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, no overpayment.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was removed from the schedule because she gave the employer the reasonable impression that she was transferring to another location. If the employer was mistaken, the claimant had the burden to clarify the situation and asked to be placed back on the schedule. The claimant did not do so. Thus, the claimant quit when she failed to clarify her status with the employer. In addition, the reasons for the claimant's transfer request did not provide her with good cause to resign since her duties had not changed. And I would not agree to an MVI because the employer was accommodating the claimant and the doctor did not advise her to quit. The claimant quit without work-connected good cause, and we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, overpayment of $1,609.
Affirm the AT voluntary leaving overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2475310, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's MR states that she filed a late appeal because TWC website and offices were not accessible due to the pandemic. There were known and admitted issues with UBS during the month of April, which prevented parties from accessing their determinations and filing appeals. Offices were also closed during this time. As the claimant has provided a reason for her late appeal, we should grant the claimant's MR to hold a hearing on the timeliness issue. Grant the claimant's MR.
The claimant's MR should be denied. The claimant did not explain why she neglected to utilize the mail system to submit her appeal in a timely manner. Moreover, the new information provided by the claimant would not change the outcome of the case since it is insufficient to establish a Guzman allegation. Since the claimant did not satisfy the 3 criteria for successful MR, her motion for rehearing should be denied.
So my preference here would be to hold this. I still have not received the information I asked for a week or two ago with regard to system issues and on what dates those occurred. I anticipate that will be this week, and staff will have a complete list for me of what those dates are, which would better inform my vote. So my preference would be to hold it pending that information, but certainly another commissioner would have to concur with that.
I'm fine with that.
Very well. We will hold this until the briefing requested by the commissioner, by the chairman, rather. Next case, please.
Case number 2489947, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was unable to call in for her hearing because his phone service had been disconnected. Under normal circumstances, the claimant would have been able to use his phone and faxes that are available at his local Workforce Solutions office. At the time of the AT1, local offices were closed due to the pandemic. Because the local office was unable to provide assistance, the claimant established good cause for his non-appearance and resubmit. Even if my fellow commissioners do not agree that the claimant established good cause, AT1 is not supportable on the record. The HR representative testified that the claimant's final absence occurred when he called in sick, and she further agreed that the claimant probably had a doctor's note. The claimant's absence due to his illness was not misconduct, and the employer's account should be protected from charge.
Yeah, the AT decision should be modified. On good cause, the claimant knew of the hearing, but did not make a reasonable effort to secure a phone to participate. In addition, the record does not support the claimant was provided misinformation by a TWC representative. Since the claimant was not prevented from participating due to circumstances beyond his control, he did not establish good cause for his non-appearance. Regarding the merits, the testimony shows that the claimant incurred 3 unexcused absences in 30 days after prior warnings. I will not agree to an MVI in this case, since the evidence suggests that the claimant's final absences could have been approved had he notified the employer in advance of his appointments. The claimant mismanaged his position of employment, and we should modify the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, server adequate response.
Reverse the AT. Claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case. Thank you.
Case number 2492546, Commissioner Alvarez.
In the motion for rehearing, the claimant states she did not receive the appeal tribunal decision due to her sisters inadvertently changing the claimant's mail delivery without her knowledge. The claimant's motion should be granted and a timeliness hearing conducted. Grant the motion for rehearing.
While the claimant has provided new evidence, she has not met the 3 required criteria. Thus, we must deny her motion for rehearing and leave the underlying commission decision in full force and effect.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2500375, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged for her poor performance. The employer testified that the claimant continued not to follow the employer's order of operation as it related to cleaning tasks. The final incident consisted of the claimant's failing to properly clean the toilet. The claimant's supervisor also stated that they had to go redo the claimant's work. It is reasonable to conclude that the claimant been paying sufficient attention to her job duties. The final incident could have been avoided. Where the work is not complex, an employee's failure to pay reasonable attention to the simple job task is misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant worked for only 1 month for the employer before she was discharged. The employer discharged her because they were unsatisfied with her performance. The claimant never demonstrated an ability to meet the employer's standards. Moreover, the claimant's statements to the commission established that she was working to the best of her ability. Per long-standing commission president, as an employee discharged for performance who works to the best of her ability and never demonstrates an ability to meet the employer's standards does not commit misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Reverse the AT, misconduct.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2500411, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. As the only party to appear for the hearing, the employer provided testimony that the claimant did not make all of the deliveries he was supposed to make. The employer further testified that the claimant did not notify anyone that he missed a stop. The manager later found out about the missed stop, and the employer provided a fact-finding statement that it received a customer complaint about the matter. The employer also testified that skipping stops is a terminable offense. As such, the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged because he did not make a scheduled stop on his route. He had never failed to make a stop before and never received any warnings in his 3 years of employment. The claimant simply made an isolated error, and his job was not in jeopardy at the time of the final incident. The claimant's actions did not rise to the level of misconduct. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Demerson.
Okay, thank you.
Case number 2500452, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's motion to rehear should be granted. The claimant alleges that her commission appeal was late because the website was down because of the pandemic. Local offices have been closed so that the parties cannot file in-person appeals or receive assistance with faxing appeals. The claimant's case should be reheard so that the claimant can provide testimony and evidence on why her appeal was late.
While the claimant had submitted new evidence, she has not met the 3 required criteria. Thus, we must deny the claimant's motion for rehearing and leave the underlying commission decision in full force in effect.
This is another case I would like to hold pending the briefing that I will receive this week.
I agree.
We will hold the case pending the briefing.
Case number 2503611, Commissioner Demerson.
The employer's CA appeal should be deemed timely. The employer's appeal states that there was a delay in processing the appeal due to the unprecedented number of unemployment claims being received. With large amounts of unemployment claims being filed, it is understandable that entities tasked with handling such claims could become overwhelmed to the point where the normal deadlines associated with appealing a claim may not be enough time to do so. As such, we should find the employer's appeal timely and resubmit for merits testimony.
The employer's appeal to the commission should be dismissed as late. The employer's appeal was filed after a month after the appeal deadline elapsed. They have not alleged non-receipt of the AT decision or any other recognized basis for the appeal to be considered timely. Instead, they simply indicated that they were busy with too many claims and did not file a timely appeal as a result. This is not an accepted reason for a late appeal to be deemed timely. Dismiss the late employer appeal to the commission as untimely.
Gentlemen, my apologies. This is another case I would like to hold. It matches the fact patterns of the others that I think will be cleared up with the briefing that I would like to hold this one as well.
I agree with that.
Thank you. We will hold this case pending the briefing.
Case number 2514190, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The employer paid the claimant emergency pay of $197.98 per week for 3 weeks. This pay was less than half the claimant's weekly wage with the employer and less than his weekly benefit amount. The claimant should not be disqualified for a period in which the employer paid him a fraction of his weekly wage. Reverse the AT, no severance eligible, no overpayment.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The evidence soundly establishes that the claimant received disqualifying wages in lieu of notice under Section 207.049A1 of the Act. The claimant stated that he received 3 weeks of emergency pay. Furthermore, pay stubs in Exhibit 1, as well as the claimant's initial statements to the commission, all indicate that the disqualification dates are appropriate. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant received disqualifying wages in lieu of notice from March 29, 2020 through April 18, 2020. Overpayment of $444.
Reverse the AT, no wages in lieu of notice, disqualification, no overpayment.
Chair, I'll short form.
Thank you, sir. I have short form dissent for Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2522237, Commissioner Demerson.
The AT decision is not supportable. The employer is a reimbursing account that had no opportunity to respond to the claimant's initial claim because it was not the last employing unit. The claimant told TWC that she was on a pandemic-related furlough from her part-time job in a store, but failed to tell the agency that she was still fully employed at her full-time job with the County Corrections Department. That employer received a reimbursement liability notice once the claimant had started drawing benefits, but it was not until then that the employer had a chance to tell TWC that the claimant was not unemployed at all and was still being paid her regular salary. The claimant eventually received a fraud determination for not disclosing her work and earning only 11 weekly claim certifications. But the damage was done from that standpoint of the reimbursement liability or actions created for the employer. I would like for this appeal to be held pending a memo from the Office of General Counsel on the question of whether the claimant's claim can be considered void from the beginning and whether the reimbursement liability from a void claim can be waived for an employer such as the one in this case.
The AT decision in this case should be reversed. The claimant worked for the employer full-time and has not been separated from the job. The claimant was not an unemployed individual and did not file a valid claim. The ruling that the employer should be billed for benefits should therefore be reversed.
Oh. My vote is to set aside the AT decision, void reimbursement ruling.
Okay, we haven't technically achieved a majority vote. As reversing the determination and voiding the determination are not technically the same.
Okay, can you also read to me the substance of Commissioner Demerson's vote?
Yes, sir. Hold pending OGC memo on whether the claim was void from inception and whether reimbursement can be waived for this employer.
I'll concur with Commissioner Demerson.
Okay, we'll hold for the general counsel memo. Next case.
Case number 252-6113, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant informed the CEO of her dissatisfaction with working with her. The CEO decided to reduce the claimant's hours to 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The claimant had not asked for reduced hours and was never informed that she was allowed to work a schedule other than the one dictated by the CEO. The reduction in hours was not due to a disciplinary action. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The evidence established that the claimant was not required to accept the part-time work schedule. Full-time work was available. The claimant also declined an opportunity to work additional hours. Because the claimant voluntarily chose to work on a part-time basis, she was responsible for the reduction in her hours. As such, she should be disqualified from benefits, and we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 253-2231, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant performing services for the employer due to an injury. Since the claimant stopped working because of a personal reason and not for good cause connected with the work, the employer should not be billed under section 205.0125 of the Act. Therefore, the AT decision should be reversed, reimbursing the employer, not billed.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant stopped working and earning wages when he had an on-the-job injury. He was thereby involuntarily separated from the job for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. The reimbursing employer should therefore be billed for benefits. Affirm the AT bill reimbursing employer.
Set aside the AT decision, void reimbursement ruling, memo to UIO and CS to investigate whether the claimant is receiving workers' compensation.
All right. We have not achieved a majority vote.
Ms. Miller, I'll agree with Chairman on this one.
Very well. So the majority vote is to void the appeal tribunal decision and send a memo to investigate whether the claimant is receiving workers' compensation benefits.
Yes, ma'am.
Sherry, let me, hold on one second. I want to confer to make sure.
Yes, sir.
One second. All right, we're fine. Thank you.
Do you agree with the
agree.
votes?
Yes.
All right. Unanimous decision to void the appeal tribunal decision and send a memo to UIO and CS.
Case number 253-3383, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant quit without requesting an accommodation from the employer related to health-related issue. Furthermore, while the claimant's documentation corroborates his medical condition, it does not place any limits or restrictions on the claimant's ability to work. Therefore, because the claimant's doctor did not advise him to quit, the claimant's quitting was without good cause connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
The AT decision should be modified as recommended. The claimant worked as a chef, which is a physically demanding job that required lots of work hours. He was diagnosed with COPD and neuropathy and could no longer physically perform the job. The claimant quit due to a medically verified illness and should not be disqualified. The employer's account should be also protected from chargeback. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback due to MBI.
Modify the ATE, no voluntary leaving, no charge back MBI.
I agree with that.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 253-3413, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The evidence establishes the claimant received $822 as severance and $2,980 for COBRA premiums on April 24th of 2020. The claimant received the severance in one lump sum and did not cover any specific period. The severance amount was approximately 1 week of the claimant's wages. The claimant should only be ineligible for the week in which the payment was received. Modify the AT, severance not eligible, April 19th, 2020 to April 25th, 2020.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant received post-separation pay that did not fall under any of the non-disqualifying circumstances listed in 207.049B of the Act. However, since neither party provided the specific amount of time that the severance pay was intended to cover, the claimant should be disqualified for the week that he received the severance pay. We should therefore modify the AT decision, severance pay disqualification from April 19th, 2020 through April 25th, 2020.
Modify the AT, severance disqualification from April 19th, 2020 through April 25th, 2020.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 254-0428, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant began working at a power plant on April 15, 2020, and informed there were 4 coronavirus infections. On April 17th, the number of infections grew to 9. By April 20th, the number of infections in the plant had grown to 28. The claimant, concerned about the 600% increase in infections in just 5 days, spoke with the employer representative. Rather than provide the claimant with PPE or explain all the measures that the employer was taking to combat the virus, the representative told the claimant that he could quit and the employer would not contest his entitlement to unemployment. The employer has never presented any statement or evidence to dispute the claimant's testimony. Employees have the right to a safe working environment, and the employer's failure to provide a safe work environment, provided the claimant with good cause connected with work for quitting. Modify the AT, valid claim, claimant unemployed, no voluntary leaving, void chargeback, employer not a party of interest.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The chargeback determination should be voided. The valid claim issue should be severed, and the employer should be designated as a non-party of interest. As to the job separation, the claimant quit his job because he feared he might contract COVID-19 at the workplace. However, the claimant did not have medical proof of illness. As such, the claimant's resignation was without good cause connected with the work. We should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, void the chargeback ruling, sever the validity of claim issue. The employer is not a party of interest.
Modify the AT, no misconduct, void chargeback, employer's MPI, sever validity of claim issue.
All right, we have a majority vote to grant benefits to the claimant, but not a majority vote as to which section of law to apply. Chairman Daniel, you've said that the claimant was separated, but not for misconduct. And Commissioner Alvarez, you said the claimant left voluntarily with good cause connected with the work.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with the chairman's vote.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, short form, Sherry.
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. I have your short form dissent.
Case number 2543080, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant accepted a job with this employer after being told that he would work 30 to 40 hours per week. And when he started, he worked 40 hours per week. By the time the claimant quit, he was only working approximately 15 hours per week. The claimant requested more hours from shift leaders, but was told no hours were available. The claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting because his income was reduced by almost 50% due to reduced hours. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, void chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. Claimant quit without notice and without giving the employer an opportunity to remedy any concerns he had about the number of hours he was working. Therefore, in accordance with Commission President, the claimant is considered to have quit without good cause connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, void the chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, void chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you. I have a short form dissent for Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2552375, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant called in to report that he would be out due to illness. The employer informed the claimant that he would not be allowed to return to work without a note from a doctor releasing the claimant to work, going back to work. The claimant obtained the note but was discharged for failing to report absences after the employer told the claimant that he could not return to work. The claimant's absence due to illness was not misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, void adequate response ruling.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant contended that he had texted the employer each day that he was absent. However, the text message and evidence do not support this allegation. Therefore, because the claimant was absent without notice for 2 days and had received 2 written warnings, including a final warning for similar behavior, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. I have your short form dissent. And that is the last UI case pulled for additional discussion on docket 30. You should have received the short form dissent list earlier today.
Yes, ma'am.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 30.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 30.
I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the short form dissent list for docket 30.
The motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's pause for a moment or two to reset for the rest of the meeting. Okay,
Back.
all right. You guys ready to tackle the rest of this?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Item 8 has been deferred to a later meeting. This will bring us to agenda item 9, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding policy concepts on amendments to 40 Tech Chapter 815 regarding guidelines for the issuance of employment insurance benefits to individuals who refuse work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Commissioner Alvarez, this was the item you asked to be placed on the agenda. I'm not sure exactly how we intended to proceed on this.
And I was thinking maybe Chris Oakley or someone from General Counsel may provide with
Okay,
we could go from there and then I could provide some comments that I have, Chairman, if that's okay.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Les Trobman, General Counsel, and with me today is Chris Oakley from UI. We, pursuant to recent commission, took direction from the dais to prepare policy concept to reflect this portion of what had previously been a rule submission externally. Staff has worked with your office, Commissioner, to prepare this policy concept in line with your direction. And we look forward to taking any further direction that the commission may have. Chris, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I did not. Thank you, Mr. Trobin.
And with that, this item is now before the commission for their deliberations.
All right. Questions or comments?
Chairman, so thank you for allowing me to be able to go into detail a little bit about what we had brought forth that we discussed back in June. Before I move and before I actually make any remarks or any of my comments, I did want to thank Chris Oakley and of course Celeste Truman for working so closely with our office on this. Commissioners, on June 16, 2020, we took action to clarify conditions under which claimants would not be disqualified for refusing an offer of suitable work when any of the outlined COVID-related conditions applied. At the commission meeting on June 30th, 2020, I asked staff to develop a policy concept to implement the suitable work guidelines and rule to further clarify and refine that guidance. Formal rulemaking will ensure all interested parties are aware of the requirements of the rule, provide greater transparencies into the development of these standards, and afford employers, claimants, and other interested parties with the opportunity to provide input. Formal rules will also provide clear and consistent guidance to all interested parties and agency adjudication staff. I agree that these rules should be implemented on the emergency basis in response to the COVID-19 pandemic for the purposes of carrying out the intent of the CARES Act funding. That concludes my remarks, Chairman.
All right. Additional comments or questions? Commissioner Demerson?
None right now, just the same as on record as saying that I know staff, we have these already, the guidelines are already established, and I'm not sure, I want to make sure that if we're doing anything that we don't box ourselves in through a rulemaking process along those lines. And so I think staff has done a good job. The discussion paper, I've looked at that. We may want to add to that, but I think we have more flexibility when we have these things up as guidelines. Once we put them in the rule, it's hard to change at that point, or it's okay with changing, but there's a process involved in doing that.
Well, and you know, I appreciate the spirit of what Commissioner Alvarez is wanting to do here. And I think that the treatment of these, you know, particular protections for people are important. But while I agree with the spirit of what he's doing, I have a similar concern to Commissioner Demerson in terms of locking us in and not having the ability to continue to make adjustments in light of where the situation with the pandemic may end up taking us. And so I'm concerned about locking these particular provisions into rule when they may necessitate changes. I'm assured by at least my legal staff that the protections that the commission has put in place here are supportable by current statute and regulation, and that people would continue to enjoy these particular protections. So while I can sincerely appreciate what Commissioner Alvarez is wanting to do here, my concern is the unintended consequence of putting this in regulation and creating an additional process to add things later if that's what the situation dictates. If I were to find out that, for some reason people weren't receiving these protections, even though everyone I'm talking to says they're fully supported by statute and regulation, then I think we would want to revisit this issue and try to understand why these protections aren't in place and what additionally we would need to do. So it's a difficult kind of decision point in the sense of I can understand the interest in codifying these into an emergency rule to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that would be more appropriate if these weren't so clearly supported by statute and regulation. So I'm supportive of the topic here. I think I'm in a bit of disagreement on, at least with Commissioner Alvarez, hopefully a friendly disagreement on the best way to implement this to ensure that people get their protections. And my concern is the unintended consequence of not being able to make modifications to these to provide people all the protections that they may need with regard to this particular situation. Having said that, Commissioner Alvarez, I would certainly entertain any additional comments or questions you may have. And it would be appropriate to bring this forward now as well.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the comments both by you and Commissioner Demerson. Again, I do just want to add for the record that, flexibility, too much flexibility guidance, can certainly cause inconsistencies and arbitrary. These will not be an emergency basis, as you said. These will just be, I should say, these will be on an emergency basis, as you just referenced, just temporary in nature. And so I just for the record, just wanted to say that, again, this would be on a temporary basis. And it, again, because of what we've experienced in our office, we just want to make sure that we don't, that we don't have too much inconsistencies. And again, this allows for too much flexibility. But again, those were just to be stated for the record. I appreciate the comments that were made by both of you all. And again, I can't stress enough that this would just be during this time of COVID-19 period in temporary nature.
Do we have any motions on this issue?
If no further comments, I have a motion, sir. I move that we approve the policy concept and allow staff to begin working on emergency rules regarding individuals who refuse work during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we would need a second for further consideration of the motion.
I think I've been pretty clear in regards to my intent.
Okay, I have my similar concerns. Let me just say this also for the record. I think that Commissioner Alvarez raises a valid point here. I think that at least where I'm concerned, I think that his mechanism here has a couple of concerns for me. I hope that if we find out that our current treatment of this issue is not effective for the people it's designed to assist, in some way is failing, that we would bring this issue back up and revisit this issue. I want to thank Commissioner Alvarez personally for keeping this important issue in front of the commission. I think that's a very prudent thing to do. He takes very seriously his commitment. to his constituency, as do all of us. And I applaud that for him and for you, Commissioner Demerson, as well. And so reluctantly, without a second, we'll have to move on from this motion, but I think this remains a live issue, one that I suspect all three offices will continue to monitor. And I think it would be appropriate to bring this back before the commission, if anything with regard to this situation changes.
Mr. Chair, if I may, a quick comment. I think in lieu of the situation here, and it's something very important, Clay and his team and the team can also reemphasize the importance of this issue to their staff members when they're looking at different cases and the like, that if he wanted to communicate out to the team to reemphasize what we have here in regards to the guidelines, and they be implemented, that could be a good thing as well.
All right. Any further comments on agenda item 9? All right. Thank you. Let's move then to agenda item 10. This is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an order to adopt fiscal year 2021 allocations, funding distributions for local workforce development areas.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. This morning you have before you the remaining FY 2021 allocations for the TF Choices, SNAP ENT, Employment Services, and Child Care programs for approval, consistent with TWC rules on allocations and available grant funding. Also included are distributions for migrant seasonal farm worker outreach services and smaller workforce area funding. Most of the allocations will go into contract effective October 1st, 2020. And this entire packet represents roughly half of the total FY 2021 budget we will bring before the Commission for approval in late August. Two additional things I would like to point out with regard to the child care allocation. On December 17th, 2019, the Commission approved a methodology that uses factors as described in Chapter 800 of the TWC rules, using a 3-year average of factors versus 1 year. This child care allocation before you uses that approved 3-year methodology. Also, on September 24th, 2019 and December 17th, 2019, the Commission approved child care allocation modifications for several workforce areas. Page 8 of your packet reflects those previously approved modifications. As you have already approved these actions, this is provided as informational only, and I am not seeking reapproval for those items. A second attachment in your packet is being presented for your information on TWC factors used in the allocation. The document provides the TWC factors from Chapter 800 that prescribe the methodology for the allocation and the amount allocated by each factor. That concludes my remarks at this time, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Right. Comments or questions?
No comments, Chairman.
None here.
So I have one comment, and it's actually kind of for future purposes, but I need to do it now because of some timing issues. So we make some provisions for what we call small board funding. It gets addressed here in the page 1 of 8 of the spreadsheets. I fully support what's in here. My comments here have nothing to do with this fiscal year. It has to do with next fiscal year. I'm encouraging staff to find a way to address the small board funding issue in the formula so that we have some base rate for all of our boards. I think that rural boards sometimes face a challenge based on their geography, sometimes their population density. There's a number of rural issues, and as both of you know, I can opine on rural issues for days at a time. I will not do that today. I think that our way of addressing this has been effective, but I think we all acknowledge the need for some base level of funding for boards to provide the level of support that we've become accustomed to from Workforce Solutions. And so what I'm encouraging staff to do, not for today, not for this vote today, but for the next fiscal year after this one. So it would be, this would be I guess for fiscal 22, I think this one here is for 21, to find a way to incorporate that into the base rate. That gives us a year to work on this. I'm raising the issue now just simply to kind of highlight issues that small boards may face. My support for some base level of funding for boards and my desire to see that incorporated so that small board funding is not left to kind of an annual up or down vote depending on the fortunes of the commission reserve fund. So that's my comment. I don't think it requires any action today, but I just want staff to start working on that. I think this is something we can pick up and address at a different time.
Chairman, we'll work with general counsel in the program areas that can move forward future alternatives for your comments.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions?
No, Chairman.
None. Okay, do we have any motions on this issue?
Chairman and Commissioner, I move that we approve and adopt the fiscal year 2021 2021 program year 2020 block grant allocations and distributions for child care services, TANF choices, employment services, SNAP employment and training, and small board funding distributions. In addition to the WIOA Title I programs previously approved on May 12, 2020, and the adult education and literacy programs previously approved on June 30th, 2020, and effective July 1st, 2020, pursuant to federal law and regulation as discussed. The executive director is hereby ordered to administer these block grant allocations in the most feasible and economical manner and within all guidelines prescribed by HB 1, General Appropriations Act 86 Legislature, regular session, the Texas Labor Code, and TWC rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you all.
Chris.
Bring us to agenda item 11, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the fiscal year 2021 operating budget and legislative appropriations request for 2022 through 2023 statewide initiatives.
Chairman, Commissioners, again for the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. As you have just approved one piece of the FY21 budget in the allocations, the document before you brings forward the statewide initiative portion of the FY21 budget for your approval and the eventual LAR submission for 22 and 23 expected sometime in late August. The document that has been briefed represents the requested statewide initiatives budgeted amounts for FY21 through 23 for the child care, TANF choices, WIOA, adult education, and employment services programs, along with any projected commission reserve balance for each program. As this packet represents the statewide initiatives budget, there are intertwined programmatic aspects to this discussion. For that reason, Jen Trope, Reagan Miller, Carrie Ballas, and Courtney Arbor are also on the line to help answer any program questions that you may have. That concludes my remarks at this time, and I would be happy to open it up for any questions or comments that you have.
Questions or comments?
I have comments, if that's okay, if this is appropriate.
Yeah, perfectly appropriate.
Great. So I'll break them up into the child care, TANF, and of course the WIOA, and just a couple of things that I would like to make comment on, and if staff would like to respond back, I would be greatly appreciated. Specifically on the child care, TWC track number 76040 HHSC 211, good resource for the agency. Not anyone has, on this particular item, this one talks about the, as you know, the HHSC 211 phone access. I think this is actually a really good resource for the agency. I feel that way because during this time, I know that a lot of folks that are trying to make contact with the Texas Workforce Commission do not have access to internet, plus some of the offices are closed. Can we fund at $500,000 for 2022 and $500,000 for 2023 as an LAR? That would be my first one. And I'm not sure if someone would like to discuss these as I go along, or I can read all my comments, Chairman, and they can come back to us. I'll leave that up to you.
I think it's probably better to discuss them as you lay out each one. That way.
Okay, so this one specifically deals with the HHSC 211 phone access, where we had no money funded for it.
Commissioner Reagan may weigh in as well, but this one actually represents, in a sense, a negotiated contract with HHSC. So although the commission have, large latitude in how much we appropriate toward it, the final amount is typically subject to negotiation and contract negotiations with HHSC. So any amount that we approve, I believe, we would have to wrestle that with HHSC as well, as they would be the other partner involved in that. So, but we definitely can take your request as far as the projected line item amount in the budget for discussions.
And Commissioner, we have been funding HHSC for a long period of time. Our recommendation to make a modification to the amount of money was based upon the percent of childcare related calls that they historically have received. But we certainly do understand that, especially during COVID, having a phone line can be an important way for citizens all across the state to access needed services. So certainly your recommendation for $500,000 could be something that we work with HHSC on. I do think it's important to ensure that we're talking with them quickly because we do understand that they are in the process of drafting a competitive RFP to procure the local service delivery providers in the coming year. So any of our decisions are important timing-wise so that they can plan for whatever the final approved amount is.
Thank you, Reagan. Thank you.
Yes.
And again, I only bring this up because of the timing with COVID-19. Other than that, that was the only reason. So not sure if we need to, at the end, second this, Commissioner, if I need to make a motion.
So perhaps if you'll lay out all of your comments, issues, questions, and then if we could come back around at the end and take, one motion, if that works. If that doesn't work, we can do something else. But I think in terms of organizing our discussion, for you to have the ability to lay out everything you're interested in discussing, I think we can come back later and do a motion on that.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Reagan. That's very helpful. And thank you for working so closely with the office. On the TANF portion, on TWC track 750626, this one specifically addresses the Texas Workforce Career and Technical Educational Specialist. And so as we looked at at what was given to us, presented to us, I noticed that there was a section on there. And of course, we've had some really good conversations with Jen Troke, Carrie Ballas, and of course, Courtney Arbor on this. So we appreciate their involvement in this. But just for clarification purposes, I know that this Friday, the Career and Technical Educational Specialists will be meeting, and I think we'll be addressing that group. The commissioners will be addressing that group. And as you know, they had, it's actually done really well. So what I'm asking on this one, this has been a very popular initiative with the boards. Boards are concerned, and this is what we're hearing from the boards. They are concerned. They would like reassurance that we could fund if ACF does not approve the state plan. And I know that we've been working very closely with Dr. Jen Troke, and we appreciate that. Can staff explore using WIOA reserve funding to support this initiative? And again, we'd like to go big, Chairman, for all 28 workforce boards. As you say, and as we've all mentioned, we'd like these big projects. More than ever, the workforce specialists are playing a bigger and more vital role. As we have seen with Tesla, businesses are still coming to Texas, and we need to make sure that there is a ready workforce, connecting young students to these careers, not jobs. I want to make sure that people understand that these are not academic counselors. These are individuals that are familiar with the workforce services, labor market and career information data, and in-demand careers. Can we go ahead and fund workforce specialists in 2022, 2023, because we are spending money on several of the other TANF initiatives that was given to us? How is it that we can use TANF Commission reserve money in the past for these workforce specialists and not during this time? So again, I want to thank Jen Troke, Dr. Jen Troke, Courtney Arbor, and her staff for working so closely with us, specifically on this initiative. Any comments from staff would be appropriate at this time before I move over to the WIOA portion, if that's okay, Chairman.
Yes.
Commissioner Alvarez, I'll just comment that you are correct, and for all others listening, we have included language in the TANF state plan to allow funding the boards to use their local allocated funds for this purpose. We staff firmly believe that it's an allowable use of funds under the TANF purposes, and we're just waiting for approval of that language. So we are confident that the language will be approved, which would allow the boards to use their local dollars. And so I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. If we do use WIOA dollars for this, there are some data entry requirements or some data gathering requirements that sometimes youth may not be as apt to provide, but we definitely can consider that also as a source of funding should the TANF plan not be approved as we hope it will be.
So we have a backup then.
Yes, the WIOA dollars require the use of the gathering of all of those demographic tables as soon as we have a little harder time getting from youth, both because of privacy and their interest or ability to provide some of the detail. But yes, WIOA would be a second option. It just has a little different level of requirement.
And again, with the support of my commissioners, I know in the past we've talked about increasing this, Chairman, from the pilot program that we had where 7 boards were awarded to possibly going bigger and allowing our 28 workforce boards to have access to this funding. I think it would be appropriate at this time to maybe bring that out. I know we've talked about it, and I would at some point like to see that all boards have an opportunity to have some type of funding source for this type of initiative.
Commissioner Alvarez, this is Chris. Just to be clear, this initiative has enough funding for those boards that already have it. They have enough funding to carry them through FY21. And also related to kind of the mechanics of the document before you. So we're presenting items for approval for 2021, and then anything you would approve to also bring forward into 22-23. But if any item isn't funded, the commission can at any time decide to make a recommendation for a future initiative. So if we don't approve something for 22-23 today, there's nothing that prevents you from bringing that up for a vote at a later date. So it's not, it's just our planning document as we go into LAR season, but it's not something that it's a living document. It's always subject to approval by the commission.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a question, Courtney. If indeed this is allowable as a TANF expense under the formula funding, as you anticipate, and I think your confidence level there is pretty high, that would mean that all 28 boards could stand up a program similar to this using the funds that they've been allocated, which would take this out of pilot status, at least with regard to how it's funded. And then does that then put the commission in a position for us to at least consider shifting our funding from operations where we are right now, because boards would have that covered under their formula funding, and we can move into some training and some things like that to ensure that it's a program. Am I correct in my assumptions on all that?
You are correct. If it's approved, the boards would be able to use their allocated dollars, and then we could support that effort through training of the workforce specialists. So we can continue our state level support as we do on other types of technical assistance.
Yeah, because I kind of have a triple issue here, all related. One is, I think it's important if this has value that all the boards be doing it. So that's one of my issues. My second issue is it needs to be more sustainable than just finding dollars every year at the state level and hoping we've got enough to continue it. I think if we this TANF funding mechanism that you just discussed, it gives us a lot more sustainability in that regard. And then 3, this is really occupancy issue, but, I'd love to see us work more closely with TEA on this, and maybe even not necessarily integrate this program with others that they may have, but certainly find complementary programs that they have so that we can really get our bang for our buck here. So, I don't think anything I'm saying is in disagreement with where Commissioner Alvarez is on this issue. I think I just come at it from a little different angle, and if the TANF funding deal works, I think it solves the issue of allowing all boards to stand up some type of program related to this, and it puts us, at least at TWC, in a much better position to provide technical assistance and training to ensure quality for the program. All right. Other issues, Commissioner Alvarez?
Thank you, Chairman, for that and for your support. On the WIOA, TWC track number 74061, Women's Entrepreneur Boot Camps. I noted that there is no funding in the 2021 or in the 2022-2023 LAR. Can we go ahead and fund it because we have money freed up from some of the other items that we're going to be taking money from? I have spoken to some of these boot camps, and I have spoken at some of these boot camps, I should say, and information disseminated is important and differs from the business forums. Suggested funding amount would be $300,000 biennium, which is just a little more than what we do now, for the 2021 operating budget of $150,000. So it was just wanting to see if we could put money in there. And then, of course, I understand, and I certainly value the small business forums. I think they're very informative, and I'd even be willing to discuss this just as long as the information that the Women's Entrepreneur Boot Camps have and the small business forums are not duplicative. But if they are, then I would be okay with not even funding this. But I know this is the mission of the Women's Entrepreneur Boot Camp is a little different, and that was brought on to us by a legislator. So I didn't know if anyone wanted to comment to them about that from staff.
Well, this is Jen. I would just say that the boot camps have been successful. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding your recommendation, because we would need, we'll put this as part of the motion. So you're recommending $150,000 in 21 and 22, correct?
It's $150,000 for 2021 and $150,000 for 2022 and 2023, which would be $300,000 biennium.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So for
yes, ma'am.
Both. All right. Okay, excellent.
And I only do this because we do have money that's been freed up as a result of some of the other things that we're going to be defunding, I should say. And again, Commissioner Demerson, I know does a really good job on the small business forums. I certainly don't want this to be duplicative of what he does there, but I do know that at the events that I have spoken at the Women's Entrepreneur Boot Camps, the audience is a little different. The information that we've disseminated both in English and Spanish has been, on other things, careers, things that are happening in their backyards. And again, this was something that was brought to us by a legislator. And I just wanted to see if we can continue funding it, but I'd be willing to have some discussion on this. And it specifically addresses the women's small businesses, or businesses, period.
Chairman, just a quick question. So on WIOA, you see the reserve balance there. So basically, Commissioner Alvarez, you're saying that women's boot camp is not reflective on this document here. What's being pushed forward and what you'd like to do is to add the women's boot camp to this document and have it funded at levels of $150,000 and $150,000.
That's correct, Commissioner. As you can see on the line item, it's not been funded for 2021
That is row
or in the LARs.
And Commissioner Demerson, that is row 16 on the WIOA page. Of
Okay.
And that concludes my comments, Chairman. And again, I appreciate the comments that you made, the 3 strategies that you looked at. Just a quick reminder on our tri-agency report that we submitted. The workforce specialist was included on there, and so I appreciate your comments and look forward to seeing what options our boards have in using the funding in the future.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Demerson?
No comments.
All right, I have a few comments, and then we'll take the requisite motion here. First, I want to encourage staff to continue to work toward the evidence-based framework efforts that they're already working toward with regard to all these grants. I think that we're doing some significant things in terms of workforce preparation, workforce advancement, and really keeping Texas, at least having the appropriate strategies to keep Texas moving forward in terms of our workforce needs. And so, in as much as we can bring evidence-based frameworks into how we operate any or all of these grants, the speed with which we can do that should be fast. And I know that these are things that you're already working on, and I just want to encourage you to continue to work toward those things. I think that the kinds of metrics that we're producing for our various programs that are represented here in this agenda item, I think we need to continue to produce the kinds of talking points about these programs that really exemplify the significance of them. Differences that it makes in helping people increase their wages, helping people get different and better jobs due to some upskilling opportunities that they have. This will be a continuing conversation with me. I don't want to burden either my fellow commissioners or staff today with all of my thoughts on this issue. Those will become plain over time. I think we have some significant programs here, and I want to be able to talk about these in the transformative way that I think that the programs are operating. And so we're going to have to probably work with our grantees to collect more data. I know that no one objects to that. It will be a bit more burdensome for us in the beginning, but I think the rewards for that will pay significant dividends for the commission in terms of how we want to help Texans position themselves in the workforce. Additionally, and this will, as we get closer to a motion here, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I've noted that we have a number of youth programs, and we have a number of programs that are designed to help position veterans better in the workforce. 2 very important groups for the state, and programs that I think are worthy of this commission, and in fact, employers and others who are participating. I think it's worthy of all of our attention. But what I've noted is that programs are kind of standalone programs, yet they do have some inner workings among the various grant programs. And so what I'll be proposing is that we wrap up 8 of our youth programs and 7 of our veterans programs that seem to have some relationship to each other into a larger funding bucket. What I'll be proposing today is that we keep the funding as proposed by staff. We keep the programs that have been proposed by staff, but we organize those into programs that I'm going to be proposed to be called youth initiatives and veterans initiatives, because when you add up the dollar amounts, we're looking at a little over $7 million in youth programs, and looks like nearly $4 million in veterans programs. I want to kind of set that money aside in that large block and encourage staff to look for ways to improve effectiveness of the programs. If that means eliminating redundancies, fine. But I want folks to see sort of our commitment to resources to these two very important groups. But I want us to start thinking in terms of large programs. I want us to start thinking in terms of how we can be transformative within a group. And I think this is a good starting point because it doesn't actually change anything from the staff recommendation other than how we organize things. And I think when we come back to this exercise next year, I think it gives us a better platform to position and structure both youth programs and veteran programs in a way that we might actually be able to get a little more out of the resources that we're investing into these two very important groups. And so really, that's the extent of what I wanted to say on that. I need to come back and make an amendment to whatever motion comes forward to pass this, which I can do, I think, fairly efficiently. But that's the full substance of what I'm trying to do. There's absolutely, I won't be taking anything away. I won't be adding anything. I'm simply sort of reorganizing things. And so hopefully you'll indulge me on that. We'll see when we get to that point. Are there any other comments or questions that we have at this time before we proceed to taking any motions?
Chairman, this is Chris. As we proceed with the LAR build, as I talked about later in August, we'll see what we can do to kind of revise this document as part of that package to kind of reflect what your comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, before Commissioner Alvarez, if he is getting ready to make a motion, going back to childcare, and I think you were talking about that contract 7640. Commissioner Alvarez, are you clear on the contract? Because I know we have decreasing at 700,000, and then there was an 100,000 as well. Are we all on the same page there? Because Chris said something about it's negotiated or so. And my comments around that were wanted to make sure I've expressed that to Reagan and the guys that early communication is very important to that agency. And I think Reagan's mentioned that they're getting ready to do their LAR and procuring contracts along those lines. So the earlier we can communicate so that there are no surprises there is going to be beneficial for us.
Yeah, when I looked at that line item and saw that we were going to remove 700,000 from that, I think we had allocated, according to the charts that I have in front of me, about 250,000. And so I felt like because of the times that we're experiencing right now with COVID-19 and what we continue to hear that they don't have access to internet connectivity, I think it's important for us to still have a phone line available for our constituents in rural and other parts of Texas. So again, I'm open for any discussions that Reagan may have with the HHSC group. And again, it's just, as of right now, just putting some money aside for that just during this difficult time. But we did free up money, and it still allows us to have money available to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any motions on this issue?
Chairman, thank you for allowing us to, or allowing me and Commissioner Demerson to provide input in this. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Chris Nelson, Courtney Arbor, Carrie Ballas, and of course, Reagan Miller for this. I know this is difficult, and so I appreciate them meeting with us regularly on this. With that, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2021 operating budget and legislative appropriations request 2022-2023 statewide initiatives as discussed.
Second.
All right. I'm going to make an amendment to the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Motion is before the commission. I want to make an amendment to the motion that would be as follows. I want to take 8 youth initiatives, including Foster Youth Workforce Transition Centers, Governor's Summer Merit Program, Youth Robotics Initiative, Camp Code, Careers in Texas Industries, Texas Internship Initiative, Texas Science and Engineering Fair, and Governor's Science and Technology Champions Academy into one youth statewide initiative. The funding for this is $7.15 million from TANF, $250,000 in WIOA. The funding amounts I would want to carry with each initiative to the new larger initiative as outlined by staff in the document. So again, this amendment is to reorganize, not to change any funding level for any specific program. The second part of my amendment is to roll up 7 veterans initiatives: Veterans Workforce Outreach, Veterans Network, Military Family Support Pilot, College Credit for Heroes Portal, We Hire Vets Campaign, Leadership Resources Administration, and Veterans Job Fair Red, White, and U, into one Veterans statewide initiative, which would include $3.238 million in TANF dollars and $559,000 in WIOA. Same principle here. I want each dollar amount that was requested or specified by staff in the document to follow its program to the new larger initiative and operate on the program rules as they were laid out for 2041. So the only changes they should bring together. That's my amendment to the motion. It would require a second for it to be germane.
Chairman, I would agree to that, but I made the motion.
Well, then it's acceptable to the authors, so we'll include that in the main motion. Now, Commissioner Alvarez, I need to be clear. Your motion seemed to adopt the staff recommendation page. I think it's appropriate if you tell us so, and I just want to make sure that Commissioner Demerson knows what he's seconding and what we're voting on. So my amendment's now included in your motion. You did not specifically reference the 500,000 I think you were recommending for the HHSC phone line and the 300,000 for the women's entrepreneur boot camps. Was your intent that that be included in your motion?
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Demerson, was that your understanding as well when you seconded it?
Yeah, he clarified the 300,000 for the women's boot camp, and also my last question to him concerning this contract, that was clarified as well. So I second that.
All right.
And Chairman,
yes, sir.
For clarification on my motion was as initiatives. So if I could read it again and tell me if you think it's okay. I move that we approve fiscal year 2021 operating budget and legislative appropriations request 2020-2023 statewide initiatives as discussed.
Okay. Okay, that is clear, and I think we have clarification. So on the career and technical education, you and I discussed two separate things. I'll tell you my understanding of the discussion. You'll need to, concur, or we'll have to have a little discussion here.
Yes,
which is permissible under this motion because we've got a motion before the commission. So my understanding is we would let staff pursue having TANF money be available to every board to operate this, and that we would come back soon and revisit our role in terms of training and technical assistance and how that might integrate into whatever TEA is doing with regard to this under the tri-agency platform. So we would not be putting any additional money today. We would let the TANF formula funds, we would seek final approval on that. Hopefully that gives a tool for boards, and then we would come back and revisit depending on what happens with that. Is that your understanding of the discussion as well?
Yes, sir. We will revisit this at a later date. I'm in agreement with that, sir.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. All right, any additional amendments, any additional discussion on the motion?
Chairman, this is Chris. Just to confirm Commissioner Alvarez's comment regarding the women's boot camp 74061, your request is 150,000 for 2021, 150,000 for 2022, and 150,000 for 2023. Correct?
That's correct. That's correct, Chris.
That's my understanding as well. If there's no further discussion, I think we probably should proceed to vote here. Commissioner Alvarez.
So the motion again with your future amendments added?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve fiscal year 2021 operating budget and legislative appropriations request for 2022-2023 statewide initiatives as discussed, with the addition of future amendments that we covered during our discussion.
Got it. And you support that, Commissioner Demerson? We still have your
I'm seconding that motion with your initiatives under youth and veterans being broken off discuss.
I agree. So we're unanimous on this issue. Staff, thank you so very much for your work on this. Both program staff and budget staff. A lot of work here. We're making a few changes. I think we're improving things in terms of what our program offerings are. Looking for flexibility for our workforce solutions partners to make this work. So thank you everyone involved with this, and we appreciate all the hard work that went in.
Yes.
Thank you.
This will bring us to agenda item 12. This is a discussion, consideration, possible action regarding statewide initiatives funded with workforce. What we owe a TANF AEL and other state level funds. Staff does not have anything to present for item 12. Item 13, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding guidance on resource utilization, services and strategies to target disaster relief efforts in public health emergencies, including those funded with the Department of Labor's Disaster Dislocated Worker Grant. Normally, I would call on Mr. Cerna. He is not able to be at the meeting today. I think Reagan has something to present on this with regard to COVID childcare.
I do. Good morning again, Chairman, Commissioners. Reagan Miller with Child Care and Early Learning Division. Today for your consideration is a supplemental distribution of about $25 million in Child Care CARES Act funds to support the 25% enhanced reimbursement rate currently in place. This distribution of funds will assist the boards as they continue to support the higher costs of childcare during COVID. This proposed distribution is based upon the proportion of the enhanced reimbursement rate funds that boards have received for payments through July. And TWC would retain a small portion, just over 1 million of the 100 million currently budgeted, to try and address boards who have additional demonstrated need. Attachment 1 provides the details on this proposed distribution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Comments or questions?
No, Chairman.
None here.
None. Do we have a motion?
Thank you again, Reagan, for everything. I move that we distribute the $25,183,826, which is 95% of the available balance, to support the estimated need of the enhanced reimbursing rate and retain $1,325,465, which is 5% of the available balance at the state level, and making those funds available to boards whose distribution is determined insufficient as discussed by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reagan.
Anything else under agenda item 13?
Commissioner, we do have two updates under item 13.
Okay.
Just general updates for you. The first is Clay Cole from the Unemployment Insurance Division, who has both a COVID and a Hurricane Hannah update. This is the appropriate time to share those.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, Commissioner Alvarez. For the record, Clay Cole, UI Division. Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Okay. I'll start off with the UI claims and payment activity update. To date, we've processed over 4 million claims and paid out over $22 billion in unemployment benefits. Last week, we experienced our highest total payout since May 30th and the second highest for a week during COVID-19. The huge demand of our UI program resources continues, and the UI team continues to work creatively to meet that demand. The last 2 weeks, we've seen initial claims decrease, which is a trend we hope will continue. UI is working closely with existing partners to further expand resources to deploy a Tier 2 specialist plan at the contract call centers as we continue to upskill contract staff and temporary resources to further increase productivity. As our contract call centers add staff, we continue to see the number of unique customers trying to reach us, and toll-free call attempts continue to drop, not as far as we would like, but however, very positive trends that we like seeing. We're also pursuing options for partnering with a UI national expert equipped to mentor and train appeals resources on the complexity of the unemployment insurance appeals processes. Upscaling our existing resources remains a top priority, and we continue our push for innovation and utilizing all resources on hand to maximize our throughputs. UI and external relations continue to work very closely on messaging outreach to UI customers. We continue to work to identify areas where customers need helpful tips to successfully navigate through our UI claims process. We continue to see individuals that for whatever reason have not requested payment, and we're sending text messages and email reminders advising customers to simply go request payment every 2 weeks. We've seen success in these campaigns and we'll continue them on a bi-weekly basis, if not weekly. Last week, we started a new process for those claimants who cannot reach us, who we cannot reach after repeated attempts. The system is sending an automated email informing them of our efforts to resolve their issue and offering directions to submit a new ticket if they still have an issue with us. UI and External Relations realize messaging is extremely important and a lot of information is out there. As I may have mentioned before, we've hired a communication strategist that works directly with External Relations in reviewing all messaging and reviewing all various communication we have posted online and in print to make sure it's clear and user-friendly. As much as we feel like we need to do this every day, we can never do it too much. For Hurricane Hannah update, as you probably read, the governor has requested emergency declaration for President Trump and FEMA for public assistance category B, which includes disaster federal assistance and hazard mitigation statewide. However, this does not include disaster unemployment assistance. UI will continue to monitor the situation closely, and if anything should change, we'll let you know. We did activate our disaster tracking features, and to date, we have processed approximately 45 claims. And finally, I just want to add, as you know, the U.S. Senate leadership released a series of bills aimed at to stimulate the economy, which includes information relative to our customers. So please be assured we are monitoring and will remain in close contact with our federal partners. And this concludes my update, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Clay. Any questions or comments?
Not at this time, Chairman.
Chairman, I'd like to just again thank Clay, Lachey, and Chris for the work that they're doing. I know that we ended the $600, and so there may be an uptick in questions. Not we, but at federal level, ended, so there may be an uptick in questions around that. And Clay, you mentioned the communication strategies. I want to make sure that our team is tied into that communication strategist from the employer standpoint. I love to see the messages that are going out and then providing you guys with what we're hearing, so that as you're communicating, that's tailored to that group as well. So looking forward to that interaction. But thank you guys for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Demerson. You know, continue the great work, Clay, and your staff. You know, we still get folks that call in, and of course, we understand that we still have folks that are overwhelming our lines, but I know that you and your staff are doing a really good job, and I just want to thank, you know, the call center folks that continue to represent this agency so well. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez.
You're welcome.
And Commissioners, I would just add, thank you, Clay. I would just add that we are in touch with the workforce boards who have been impacted by some of the hurricane winds and flooding. And vocational rehab staff are also in contact. Cheryl Fuller is in contact with the vocational rehab offices and working with them and staying in touch with them to see if they need it from us. The majority of the damage, either through wind and debris, debris being pushed in or flooding, has been pretty minimal, thankfully. And so all of the workforce boards, even if they do have some flooding or other minimal damage to the buildings, have either been able to remain open or they're providing services virtually. So all areas, but both in vocational rehab and in our Workforce Solutions offices, continue to operate either virtually or in person.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions?
No, Chairman.
All right. Thank you very much, Courtney. Move to agenda item 14. This is discussion of various possible action regarding the Texas Workforce Commission Agency strategic plan for fiscal years 2021 through 2025.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson. For the record, I'm Margaret Hession, Director of Communications. You have before you the fiscal year 2021 through 25 TWC strategic plan for your consideration and approval. Wanted to thank again you and your members of your staff and other team members from across the agency for all they've done to contribute to the report. For the report as a whole, I'm requesting approval for the plan with your permission to make any technical corrections as necessary, and also to accept or take any suggested revisions from the commissioners today. I'm happy to answer any questions or accept any changes you have.
All right. Comments or questions?
Chairman, the only thing I'd like to add is I also want to take this opportunity to thank Margaret and her team, Joe, Shine, and the folks that work closely with her to provide us updates on the messaging. I certainly don't want to delay this any more than we have to. Given to you earlier this morning and distributed by Les was the changes, the proposed changes to the commissioner's message. I have them in front of you. There, you should have them in front of you. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to look at them. Basically, it's pretty much the same things that I covered last week. We were asked to make any to make any revisions since last Tuesday. There were a couple of things that we noted that Commissioner Demerson had asked for, and so we actually infused them in the report and some of our changes. But I have both the changes in front of me that we made, and also the changes that that Commissioner Demerson has laid before us. I'd be willing to discuss them, but I have nothing else to add except that, you know, I'm okay with the changes that the Commissioner Demerson has made. There are a couple of things that I, you know, just for clarification, and they make a lot of sense on what he's added or what he's brought forth. But at this time, the proposed changes that I gave that were given to you this morning are the only additions, and I took into consideration the discussion that we had last Tuesday.
Commissioner Demerson?
No, nothing. I'll go over the ones that I've added. I think you guys have that before you in regards to the line items. And so add in the word small business, some technical edits that are there. Wanting the staff to just make sure they're clear on the 4 years of typical unemployment during the 4-month time period from March to June. We kind of added those technical things there. And so I'll leave it to staff. If it's 3 months or 4 months, they'll look at that. We've added the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the rest is lined up. I think Commissioner Alvarez's comments are some of them are technical edits as well, but nothing substantial along those lines. And so I think what we've provided in one point, the governor, the Texas legislature, and partners, we kind of just changed the structure there. Instead of going partners first or whatever, we changed that around. So I think it's pretty small things there.
Now that I have a chance to see these related to this particular agenda item, these seem to track what we were discussing last week, and you know, I would express similar comfort with what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at it quickly now that I have it. So I entertain any motions we might have on this issue.
I have no additional comments, but I do have a motion, like you said, sir. So if you want me to, I can move forward on that. Unless there's any additional comments from Commissioner Demerson. Again, everything that he referenced pretty much last week was incorporated in our comments using the word skills and other things. And some of the words that you used, Chairman, about going big and stuff like that were incorporated in some of our remarks as well. And so with that, those are the only comments I have, and I'm ready for a motion if you'd like.
Commissioner Demerson, any further comments?
Just those little technicality things there. 13 million individuals ready to meet the needs of the more than 550,000 employers. Just making sure the staff, if it's 13 million or 11 million, wherever we are in that regard, just making sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
Well, with that said, unfortunately, that's the only line item that I deleted. If you look at what we passed forward. Because that number fluctuates. And so I would hate for us to stick to a number that is not there. So that's the only line item or item that I because it becomes redundant. We have it in other parts of the report, but to put it in the messaging is not probably what I would like to put it. I would like to place it because that number changes. If we put 8 million and then in 4 years we're back at 14 million, I would prefer that we delete that line, if that's okay, Commissioner Demerson. I did include your 28 workforce boards continue to provide services. We put the skills development in there, but because that number fluctuates, I didn't feel like it would be appropriate, and it is in the body of the report.
Yeah, and I agree with you that mine, the one that I received had 13 million. Yours took it totally out. And so I'd love to go with yours. When I read yours, it actually took it away. So we don't have that problem of 13, 11, 14 or anything. So I agree exactly with what you wanted to make sure staff had that clarification that you don't include it, that we go with what you have, which totally eliminated it.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Chairman, I think we're in agreement that that what was brought forward to you and to the commission is what I'm going to be making a motion on.
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the Texas Workforce Commission Agency Strategic Plan for fiscal years 2019 to 2023 as amended, and allow staff to make any technical corrections in addition to what we've mentioned on the record.
Second that motion.
Okay, I support the motion. We need a little discussion here. So my understanding of the motion is that both sets of written changes that were submitted by Commissioner Alvarez and Commissioner Demerson will be brought in under the motion. I do not see any place where they're contradictory. And on the one area that we've discussed now for the second time, Commissioner Demerson and Commissioner Alvarez are in agreement with regard to how we represent some numbers. So that is my understanding of the motion. I do support the motion. I'll be voting for it. If there's a different understanding of the motion, let's clear that up now, but I think that's where we are.
From this, from my perspective, there is no changes. I agree with exactly what you just stated, Chairman.
Right. I think we're unanimous on this issue, and so the motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner.
Do we have a legislative report today?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson. This is Michael Britt, Governmental Relations. I do have a legislative update for you this morning.
Great.
Yesterday, U.S. Senate leadership released the American Workers, Families, and Employers Assistance Act. The bill provides further assistance to individuals affected by COVID-19. Specifically, the bill would extend the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program at a flat rate of $200 through September 2020. Beginning in October, this payment would be replaced with a payment of up to $500 per week that, when combined with an individual's weekly benefit amount, would replace 70% of their lost wages. The bill would require states, beginning 30 days after the enactment of the legislation, to notify recipients of unemployment insurance and employers about state laws regarding return to work and suitable work requirements. The bill would also allow states to handle pandemic unemployment assistance appeals in the same manner that they handle appeals for state UI benefits, instead of requiring PUA appeals to be handled in the same way disaster unemployment assistance appeals are handled. The bill provides $2 billion to assist states in upgrading their state unemployment insurance systems to be better prepared to handle a surge in claims, adjust wage replacement levels, adjust earnings, and be able to vary benefits over time, as well as automate processes that are done manually in many states. The bill also increases assistance to reimburse nonprofits, governmental agencies, and Indian tribes for the costs they incur through December 31st, 2020 to pay unemployment benefits. This bill would increase the assistance from 50%, which was provided under the CARES Act, to 75% of these costs. The bill also establishes a safe harbor for marketplace platform companies so that they may provide certain COVID-19 related assistance to service providers without jeopardizing the service provider's independent contractor status. Finally, the bill would provide a temporary expansion of the Work Opportunity Tax Credit by creating a new target group titled 2020 Qualified COVID-19 Unemployment Recipients, and increase the credit amount for this group would increase the credit amount for this group to 50% of the first $10,000 of qualified first-year wages. Staff are continuing to review the bill to determine other provisions and how it would impact TWC and our programs. And with that, this concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments?
No, Chairman.
None here.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Well, gentlemen, we have a tremendous opportunity before us today. We have a special guest presenter for the executive director's report. So all those questions we've been wanting to ask, this may present our opportunity. We'll have to find out. Courtney Arbor, do you have anything else to report on the director's report today?
Do not have a thing to add today. Thank you, sir, for asking.
All right. Questions or comments?
I do know that the acting executive director, Courtney Arbor, was making fun of my slip and slide that I referenced earlier, but Chairman Daniel and I know what a slip and slide in South Texas is like, so.
It is a different thing in its entirety and just as much fun, so.
So Courtney is on record.
But besides that, nothing really. Yeah.
Chairman, I have a number of questions to ask here. I was asking Courtney, how many staff members do we have here, and what's our LAR for this year, and will it be on time?
Chris, are you still on?
Chris is
I
gone.
am. We're currently awaiting instructions from LBB. We can't really, we're continuing to build, but we can't move forward.
Chris, I was okay.
Hey, Chris, I can't disclose those until finals, Commissioner Demerson.
You got it. All right. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Well, now that we've enjoyed that moment of panic, Courtney, thank you so much. Is there any other order of business coming before the commission?
Chairman, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank staff, not just those that reported to us, but those our whole entire staff. You know, as you know, we had a lot of agenda items, and it takes time for staff to meet with directors, and they're able to make it work. So I know our office and the other offices, commissioners' offices, all appreciate the hard work that our directors put forth. So I just wanted to make that note and to thank them all. These are challenging times. And so for us to be as creative as we are, and I also wanted to thank you, Chairman, for your leadership, and Commissioner Demerson as well. I think, you know, couldn't have asked for a better group of folks to work with, so I appreciate that. With that said, I move that we adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, before a second, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Commissioner Alvarez, for those remarks, Chairman, for what you're doing. But this week, we're celebrating the Americans with Disability Act. That was signed July 6, 1990, and it was signed by a Texan, President George H.W. Bush, in that regard. And so I know you guys are joining me in commemorating that moment for the Americans with Disability Act for this week. And we have Doris, Cheryl, and her team that's over here, the Voc Rehab team, doing a heck of a job for us. And so I just wanted to put that out there on the record as well, that we commend that, the signing of that took place July 26, 1990.
Absolutely, and I want to echo your remarks, Commissioner Demerson, on the Disabilities Act, and certainly your remarks, Commissioner Alvarez, in terms of the amount of effort staff has put in to preparing many of these agenda items. We are dealing daily with continuing to work with COVID-19 response. We've got a little bit of hurricane response that we're working on, and also trying to secure our financial resources for next year and the years after. So there's a lot of different things going on. Many different issues that are being discussed and talked about, and I just really appreciate the organization with which these things reach the commission. I did hear a motion to adjourn. If there's a second.
There's a second.
Oh, it has been seconded. Then moved that we adjourn. The commission is adjourned.